Snow in the southeast this weekend. That's what we are looking at. Some areas could see significant accumulation, others might see just a trace, and for many locations, this forecast is changing by the hour. I've been monitoring the latest model runs from the North American mesoscale, the global forecast system, and the European model. They re-showing 3 different solutions. That's not unusual this far south, but it means we need to pay close attention to how this system develops over the next 48 hours. Right now, conditions across the country are setting up an interesting contrast, and understanding where we are today helps explain what's coming this weekend. Across the Gulf Coast from Texas through Louisiana and into Mississippi, it's been warm and humid. Temperatures running 10 to 15 degrees above normal. Severe weather moved through Mississippi this morning with tornado warnings. That warm, unstable air mass has been dominating the region. South Carolina has seen rainy conditions all week, near record warmth in some areas. That changes dramatically starting Sunday. Compare that to the high plains. Eastern Colorado saw temperatures drop to 17 degrees this morning. Wind chills down to 5 degrees. That is the Arctic air we are going to be discussing. It is already in place across the northern tier, and it is about to push south. The contrast is sharp, and when you have warm, moist air from the Gulf meeting Arctic air pushing down from Canada, you create the potential for winter weather across the southeast. The question isn't whether these 2 air masses will clash. They will. The question is exactly where that clash occurs and what form the precipitation takes when it falls. Let me walk through what the models are showing, because understanding the disagreement helps us assess confidence levels. The NAM model, the 12-kilometer North American mesoscale, has been the most aggressive. The 0600 Zulu run from this morning shows significant snowfall across portions of South Carolina, southern North Carolina, and even into coastal areas. We're talking 4 to 8 inches in some locations. The NAM has the system tracking further north and west, which would bring the heaviest precipitation into areas where cold air is already established. Here is what makes the NAM interesting for this setup. It showed a similar aggressive solution last January for the Crestview, Florida event. The GFS and Euro were more conservative. The NAM verified. Northwest Florida saw 10 inches. That doesn't mean the NAM will be right this time. Models don't have memory, but it does mean we can dismiss what it is showing. The GFS, the global forecast system, has been less consistent. Earlier runs showed substantial snowfall across Georgia and the Carolinas. More recent runs have trended the precipitation shield further east and south. The 1800 Zulu run from yesterday afternoon had significant accumulation across the Columbia, South Carolina area. The 00 Zulu run from overnight shifted that eastward toward the coast. That eastward trend is something we've seen before with Gulf low systems. The GFS has a tendency to be too far west with the track in the extended range, then correct eastward as we get closer to the event. So this trend, while disappointing for areas in the Midlands and Piedmont, isn't necessarily surprising. The European model has been the most conservative and the most consistent. It is showing the bulk of the snow staying along and east of Interstate 95, coastal North Carolina from Wilmington northward, the Outer Banks, southeastern Virginia. The Euro has the system tracking further offshore, which keeps warmer air in place longer across interior sections. Now, which model do we trust? That is the question everyone wants answered. And the honest answer is, we want to know until we're much closer to the event. The European model has the best overall track record for medium-range forecasting. It tends to handle complex coastal systems well, but it can also be too conservative with southern snow events, underestimating dynamic cooling and snowfall rates. The GFS has been struggling with convective feedback this winter. It has had some significant busts. But it also captures large-scale patterns reasonably well, and its recent eastward trend matches what we often see with these setups. The NAM is a short-range model. It is only reliable out to about 60 hours, but within that window, it can capture mesoscale features that the global models miss. Snowfall rates, banding, dynamic cooling effects. So here's where we are. The setup is legitimate. Arctic air is moving into the southeast. Moisture from the Gulf will be available. A surface low will develop. Those are the ingredients we need. What we don't know yet is the exact track of that low, the precise temperature profile in the lower atmosphere, and how quickly cold air works its way south and east. Let me break this down by region because impacts will vary significantly depending on location. For the coastal Carolinas and southeastern Virginia, this looks like a higher probability event. Wilmington, the Outer Banks, the Tidewater area of Virginia. Even the more conservative European model shows accumulating snow in these areas. We re-looking at Saturday night into Sunday. Precipitation should start as rain, transition to a mix, then to snow as cold air wraps in behind the system. Accumulation in these coastal areas could be in the 2 to 6 inch range, maybe higher if we get heavy banding. The problem with coastal snow is that ground temperatures start warmer, and you are fighting ocean influence. But if snowfall rates get heavy enough, accumulation will occur even on paved surfaces. If you in this zone, pay attention to the transition time. Saturday evening will likely be rain. By midnight, we could be seeing a mix. Sunday morning is when the changeover to all snow should occur, if it happens. For the South Carolina Midlands, Columbia, Sumter, areas around Lake Murray, this is more uncertain. The NAM has you in the bullseye with significant snow. The GFS has trended you toward the edge of meaningful accumulation. The Euro keeps you mostly rain with perhaps a brief period of wet snow at the end. You've seen this before. January of last year, the forecast changed multiple times in the 72 hours before the event. Some areas that were supposed to miss it entirely ended up with 4 to 6 inches. Other areas forecast for heavy snow saw mostly rain. If the system tracks 20 to 30 miles further west than the current Euro solution, Columbia could see significant accumulation. If it tracks as currently forecast, you will see rain transitioning to a brief period of snow with little to no accumulation. For the North Carolina Piedmont, Raleigh, Greensboro, Charlotte, you are in a similar boat. On the northern edge of the potential, the NAM shows some accumulation for areas around Raleigh. The other models are less enthusiastic. Charlotte and areas west face an additional challenge. The mountains create down-sloping effects that can warm the air just enough to keep precipitation in the liquid phase. You've seen this pattern repeatedly. The mountains always mess things up, as someone from Upstate, South Carolina commented. That is not wrong. Terrain matters. For northern Georgia and northern Alabama, this system doesn't look promising. You're too far west and too far from the moisture. You might see some flurries on the backside if cold air really crashes in, but meaningful accumulation is likely with this event. That doesn't mean your winter is over. The overall pattern is favorable for additional chances as we move through late January and into February. But this particular system isn't your storm. For the Florida Panhandle, particularly around Pensacola, this is interesting. You saw snow last January. Getting it 2 years in a row would be unusual, but the setup has potential. The key is timing. If precipitation arrives while temperatures are still marginal, you'll see rain. If it holds off until Sunday morning when the coldest air moves in, accumulation is possible. The local forecast for Pensacola is still evolving. Models show precipitation in the area, but the temperature profile is right on the edge. A degree or two makes all the difference. Now let's talk about what happens if this does come together, because if you were in an area that sees accumulating snow, you need to be prepared. Road conditions will deteriorate quickly if we get moderate to heavy snowfall rates, an inch an hour or more. The Southeast doesn't have the infrastructure for snow removal that northern states have. Roads want to be pre-treated in most areas. Plows are limited. If you need to travel Sunday, monitor conditions closely. Don't assume roads will be passable just because the forecast only calls for 2 or 3 inches. 2 inches of snow in Atlanta is very different than 2 inches in Minneapolis. For those in Florida who don't regularly deal with freezing temperatures, multiple thin layers work better than trying to find a heavy coat you probably don't own. A base layer, a fleece or sweater, and a windbreaker will keep you warmer than a single heavy jacket. Stock up on essentials before Saturday evening. Bread, milk, whatever you normally buy. Not because this is an apocalyptic event. It's not. But because if you do get snow, you might not want to drive for a day or two. Check on elderly neighbors. Make sure they have what they need: heating, food, medications. Cold doesn't just mean snow. Wind chills Sunday night into Monday could be in the teens across much of the region. That is serious cold for areas that don't regularly see it. If you lose power, which can happen with ice on power lines or heavy wet snow. Have a backup plan. Know where your flashlights are. Have batteries. A way to charge your phone. This isn't a fear-mongering. It is practical preparation for a winter weather event in a region that doesn't see them often. Let me address something I've been seeing in forecasts and on social media. The tendency to either overhype these events or dismiss them entirely. This is a legitimate winter weather setup. Arctic air is real. Moisture is available. A system will develop. Those are facts. But it's not the storm of the century. It's not Snowmageddon. It's a winter weather event with the potential for accumulating snow across portions of the southeast. Some areas will see significant impacts, others will see rain, some will see nothing. We've dealt with worse. Many of you remember the blizzard of '93, the superstorm. That was a different animal entirely. Temperatures below zero, winds of 60 miles per hour, snow measured in feet, not inches. This isn't a that, but it also isn't a nothing. Don't let the fact that you've seen worse make you complacent. Respect the potential for this system to cause problems, even if it's not historic. What do we watch for over the next 24 to 48 hours? First, the overnight model runs. The 00 Zulu GFS, the 06 Zulu NAM when it comes into range, the 12 Zulu Euro. If they continue trending eastward, confidence decreases for interior locations. If they trend back west, areas currently on the edge come back into play. Second, surface observations, Saturday. Actual temperatures, actual dew points. Models are great, but reality matters more. If temperatures Saturday afternoon are warmer than forecast, that eats into the time available for cold air to work in. Third, precipitation timing. Earlier arrival favors rain, later arrival favors snow. If the system slows down, that can work in favor of accumulation as more cold air has time to filter south. Fourth, upper-level dynamics. The speed of the short wave, the tilt of the trough. Negative tilt brings colder air further south faster. Neutral or positive tilt keeps warmer air in place longer. These are the things meteorologists watch. You don't need to understand all the technical details, but knowing what matters helps you evaluate the information you're seeing. One more thing about snowfall in the south. It's unpredictable even in the short range. I've seen forecasts call for a dusting turn into 6 inches. I've seen forecasts call for 6 inches produce nothing but cold rain. That's not because meteorologists are incompetent. It's because the margin for error is razor thin. The difference between 32 degrees and 34 degrees is the difference between accumulation and nothing. 2 degrees. That's incredibly difficult to forecast with certainty 72 hours out. So if you're seeing different forecasts from different sources, that's normal. If the forecast changes between now and Saturday, that's normal. If we don't have high confidence in exact amounts and locations, that's normal for this type of event in this part of the country. What I can tell you with confidence is this: monitor the forecast closely over the next 2 days. Don't make assumptions based on where you live or what you've seen in the past. Each system is different. Be prepared for winter weather if you're anywhere from the Florida Panhandle through the Carolinas and into southeastern Virginia. Have a plan, have supplies, pay attention. This is a developing situation. Model guidance will continue to evolve. Local National Weather Service offices will issue warnings and advisories as the event gets closer and confidence increases. For areas that do see accumulating snow, enjoy it if you can. Build a snowman with the kids. Take pictures. These events happen often in the southeast. When they do, they create memories. But be smart. Stay safe. Don't take unnecessary risks driving in conditions you are not familiar with. A snow day is fun. A trip to the emergency room isn't tea. I'll continue monitoring the models and will have updates as this system develops. The next critical model runs are tonight. By tomorrow morning, we should have better clarity on track and timing. For those hoping for snow, I understand the excitement. There's still a chance this comes together. For those hoping it stays away, I understand that too. Either way, we'll know more soon. Stay weather aware, be prepared, and we'll see what